probably start by saying that one would want to probably sympathize, empathize with the business owner, because for sure power is one of the key enablers of business. So if you do not have power, there is no production that we should be talking of. Yes, but the thing now that becomes worrisome when you look at it from the labor perspective would be the aspect to say the Labor Act under Section 2A provides for a democratic work environment. It is the workplace must be an institution which must be inclusive. It must take into cognizance the workers, it must take cognizance of the employer. So now, suppose that this owner whom we just said, they've got aftermath of this incident, because definitely there are going to come some labor issues around that. What there should be allegations towards him to say he acted unilaterally. He took everything upon himself. Yet we have got the institution, yet we have got the tools which are provided for in the Labor Act.
Yeah. So would we say he's acted unilaterally because he's the mouthpiece of this conversation?
The first thing probably is to consider that there are businesses which are owned by celebrity owners, where everything actually revolves around an individual. But if you look at it from a business perspective, we must have organs such as the HR. We must have things like the Works Council, which comprises equal representation from the Workers' Committee and from management, to try and sit around the table and iron out these differences and come up with solutions or proposals to come out of it. Because look at it for like, there is an aspect that we should consider here. There is an obligation from the employer side to pay salaries. And who is going to pay salaries when these employees are sent home? Are they going to earn their salaries while they're at home not working? Or they are going to say no work, no pay? Those issues, they need to be discussed around the table.
Yeah, but we are only looking at a minute's worth of this conversation. Is it not possible that the conversation did happen back doors and the head honcho then becomes the mouthpiece? Imimi kuti pakaitika matambudziko akadai pabasa dzinosanganisa rekuti pane zvaaita kuti bhizimusi isaendera mberi, vanhu vaakutochinjwa pekushandira, vaakutoendeswa kumba, zvinofanwa kuudza vashandise.
Right, saka zviripo Folake, isusu tokuita ma-assumption nekuti information yakaita sei hatina. But if I read the statement as an expert, I could pick some gaps. Zvekuti kana dai zvakaitika within a setup yatikutaura Works Council and proper advice was acquired, some things could have said better.
All right, so here we are tomboti tisu varedzi vekambani tasangana namatambudziko iwayo kuti zvimari haisi kuzobuda mwedzi uno nokuti hakuna magetsi, hapana product, munhu wese uri kutozviona. Dzimwe nguva isusu kwedu kwezvidhina vashandi vanogona kutoresva ivo pakuvaka zvototikostera isusu kuti taakutoda kurudunura totangidza handitika, meaning kuti mari inogona kusapinda kana kuti whatever challenges that may come affecting people's payment. Muri kuti chii chinofanwa kuitika? Muridzi webhizimusi unofanwa kugara neworks council woruudzana kuti kudii.
Ndiko saka tichiti tinofanira kunge tine institution yatoshandisa which is provided for in the labor market, in the labor act. Saka zviripo ndezvekuti masolutions aya anofanira kudiscusswa, vanhu voita sehowira. Ndataura ndikati pane contract iripo. Contract iyi kai Folake haisi kususpendiwa because magetsi aende and magetsi achadzoka maindiwo. Handizvo? Saka tirikuti ipapo that period iyoyo macircumstances iwaya haasi akonzerwa naemployer, that's correct. Haasi akonzerwa naemployee, that's correct. But how are we going to treat them? Because we've got my obligations, we've got my rights which we are supposed to respect within that period.
All right. So we've often understood that when you are looking at the Works Council, they come in really to have representation of the managers, the workers themselves in there, and they pretty much are responsible for propelling the agenda of the institution, but also representing the voice of the employees in as far as situations are concerned. Kosam, who's also joining the conversation, Kosam is a HR expert and he's also a lawyer. Kosam Gori, good morning and welcome. In your view, Kosam, what should be the role of the Works Council in this situation? Should it be the managers to initiate the conversation, or should be the Works Council be at the top of the situation, coming in to say, listen, we have a problem here?
Folake, and good morning, Zimbabwe. Thank you for having me on this wonderful platform. The Works Council is alluded to by my colleague who is in the studio there with you, Mr. Bonda. It's a consultative platform made up of equal numbers from the employer representatives, which is management, and the employees representatives in the workers' committee. And the purpose of having this platform is to foster consultative dialogue in an environment where democracy is seen to be prevailing at the workplace. They discuss matters of common interest, and they discuss matters affecting both sides in trying to come up with sustainable solutions that will help them to get out of the situations that they find themselves in. There are those that come from the internal environment, and there are those that come from the external environment. In most cases, those that come from the external environment, they don't have much control over them, and they can only respond to and adapt. And for them to be able to move together, they need to consult each other and come up with internal agreements as to how to manage and deal with the external monster that is threatening the well-being and existence of the business or productivity, so to speak.
Right. So,
these parties need to consult each other and look for sustainable solutions to the problems that they face.
All right. So, according to the Labor Act, Section 25A, which pretty much explains the composition, the procedure, and the functions of the Works Council, it also highlights what the Works Council should do. And one of those things, Section 25A(5), without prejudice to the provisions of any collective bargaining agreement that may be applicable to the establishment concerned, a Works Council shall be entitled to be consulted by the employer about proposals relating to any of the following matters: restructuring of the workplace caused by introduction of new tech and work methods, product development plans, job grading, training, education schemes affecting employees, partial or total plant closures and mergers and transfer of ownership, which is what this is about. So according to you, Kosam, what could be some of the solutions proffered in a situation where productivity has been halted? There has to be partial closure. Zvizvatingabetserana navashandi nevashandigwi kuti tiwanane kuti vanhu vafare.
So the first thing is to acknowledge the fact that the employment relationship gives rise to rights and duties. The rights of the employer are the duties of the employees and vice versa. In this case, the employees are entitled to a salary. And once they're entitled to a salary, the obligation is that of the employer to communicate should there be any impediment that will hinder the payment of those salaries.
Right.
And if these impediments are caused by external factors, let's consult each other at Works Council level, and let's then say, during the period that we are being affected by this problem, how do we respond to the duty that the employer has to pay salary? We can say, okay, fine, we have got leave days. Let's send the people on leave, and we agree. And in most cases, the employees will agree. It will be so unreasonable for the employees to disagree where there are external factors that are affecting basically productivity or the smooth flow of business. So instead of simply going home to sit and expecting a salary at the end of the month, there is a leave obligation that arises as a result of Section 14 of the Labor Act. It would be good for parties to agree to then say, okay, let people go on leave. Those that do not have leave, then how do we proceed? If they agree to say they will take their leave, in advance and then accrue such leave, it's still okay as long as there is an agreement. Some people may be owed overtime, which means that they can be given time off in lieu of that payment, just to ensure that both parties are not prejudiced by the situation that they found themselves in. And also to ensure that there is no act of unilateralism where the employer then just say, this is what we are doing and this is why we are doing it. Consultative dialogue must be fostered. Level.
Got you. But okay, you wanted to come in Itai before I ask my question. All right.
So listening to Honorable Gori talking there for like, you could just see that the company actually made a brilliant idea. For sure, this was an opportunity for them to utilize their leave days through agreement, through the table. They couldn't do that one. One was chained, urukwenda house kubada wacha expect kubada wanted. In the leave days, I go on and go now to chama expect kubada. Instead, you should have taken advantage of this to actually use up those days.
Yeah. So to somebody who's listening in, leave days doesn't mitigate from you owing me my salary though.
But at least, like we are saying, we can agree. This is the reason why we are saying we are using the table now. And we can agree to say nobody is going to be paid. Because like what Honorable was saying, the situation is caused by external environment. It's not my reason. It's not your reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So in short, we are saying, Itai, even in partial closures, specifically to do with issues that have nothing to do with us as a business, employees are still entitled to be paid their salaries.
Yes, if negotiation hasn't taken place, the contract will continue to run. Yes.
Kosam, what becomes the role of HR in this situation?
Human resources department, the human resources manager or officer, as the case may be, is an internal consultant whose role is to guide both parties, the employer and the employee, on matters relating to labor relations, on matters relating to labor administration, on matters relating to human resources administration. They are there to ensure that they tell the employer that in this situation, the law says this and that and that and that. The responses that we can come up with are limited to A, B, C, and D. If we were to do the following, it will be manifestly unlawful because of 1, 2, 3, 4 provisions of the law, either the collective bargaining agreement for the sector or the Labor Act, as the case may be. And by the way, the Labor Act is the supreme source of labor law in the country, apart from the Constitution. And anything that is done contrary to provisions of the Labor Act is deemed to be void ab initio to the extent of its inconsistency with the provisions of the Labor Act. So the Human Resources Department must ensure that the employer is in compliance with provisions of the Labor Act, with provisions of the agreed contract of employment, which contract of employment must speak to the Labor Act, meaning that they must be in conformity with the provisions of the Labor Act, as well as the other provisions of the relevant collective bargaining agreement for the particular sector. They occupy a very important position because compliance will lead to reduction of losses, because non-compliance may lead to many labor matters where they will then have to engage external counsel, who are very expensive. And in the end, they are also paid to pay certain amounts that they were supposed to have paid or prevented. So it's important to have a good and appreciative human resources department that will guide the employer accordingly in the best interest of the organization, not the person of the employer, not the person of the employee, but the organization and all the stakeholders around that organization, which means both employer and employee.
All right. We're talking this morning on Capital 100.4 FM. Harada's Habit, looking at a video that was circulating where the head honcho was addressing his team about the realities on the ground that the company was going to face partial closure. I'm just going to play this just so that you are on the same page as we proceed. We want to find out, coming up next, what exactly then the Works Council, what is the process of the Works Council sitting down and deliberating on this reality that there is closure that is coming up? Vanofanira kugara here vowereketa vovhoterana here chii chinofanira kuitika kuti vasvike pekuti vanozodzokera vachiudza varidzi vebhizimusi kuti izvi ndo zvatawira nazvo. You also can send in your questions on 0719-100-404 if you've also gone through similar situations facing partial closure or total closure of your business. How was it handled? Did you have a consultative discussion about it with your employer as well as your Works Council? Maybe tovana totanga tabvunzana kuti kwenyu munayo here Works Council pabasa penyu, munotombogarawo here pasi muchiziya nyaya dzakasiyana siyana idzodzidzi. What is your agenda as a Works Council, if you have one, and if you are a part of it? Good morning.
I'm Folake, and in everything I do, I move confidently to outstretch the parameters of how you should see yourself, so that you can reframe your life. Folake on Capital 100.4 FM.
And we're trying to recover now. I'm very sorry, but those people are not so.
So, whilst we were not there and we may not have full details of what exactly transpired, I can understand why, Itai, you feel from an expert point of view that there are steps missed, because in the communication, he highlights the problem and gives a solution. There is no indication of a dialogue between the final position and everyone else. He's actually apologizing and saying, without having asked him to say, I understand why you'd say that. And that's not to say that's not what happened, but looking from the outside, we are simply saying, okay, there is no dialogue. It's the problem and the solution. And you are saying, as a business, as an institution, to avoid problems, when there is a problem of this magnitude, as provided by the Labor Act, consult with the people, and whatever position you give must resonate with the discussion that has happened. It must not sound as if you have made a unilateral decision. That's what you are saying. And you're saying, just from what is being said, it does not sound as if he threw it to the Works Council to say, what do you guys propose? This is what I'm thinking. And I think that's what you're saying. But further to that, this discussion is not really about this clip. The clip is only a case in point of some of the situations that may be happening on the ground for you as an institution, and some of the pitfalls you might want to avoid, so that you can make sure that you are caught on the right side of the Labor Act in the event that industrial action is taken. Nekuti zvakadai musina kuwereketa neWorks Council, vashandi vanogona kutotsamwa. Kana vatori members NEC izvezvi vanogona kuti zvichabatirikwa. Iwe muridzi webhizimusi kana kuti samamanager muchifunga kuti mamuchigona, nyaya iyi inodzoka yakushatirai moti saka mamachi vanhu havachatambiri mavati vanotambira. Imuchifunga kuti muri kuwirirana. I think that's what you're saying in short.
Even ukatarisa Folake, the video yachona pane two groups of people. Kune vamwe vari kutoita fanika vari kusurikirwa vanenge vakapfeka mauniform avo kana vakatarisa, koita vamwe vari bit neutral. Avo it looks like vanoramba vari kubasa, because kana zvikanzi muri kuenda hamusi kuenda mese, kune vachadzoka, kune vanonzi chimboendai kuMabuya, handiti? So what it means, handiti, Folake, ndezvekuti we have also missed the aspect here buy-in. Dai pakaitwa this consultative, these deliberate meetings, handiti, dai munhu wese ari on the same page achiziva kuti no kuenda kwatiri kuenda kuti kuenda, but because we have got a situation but we are coming back, everybody will be happy.
Yeah.
And you see, and as you couldn't implement, nobody is going to raise any labor issue out of it. But if it appears as if you have made everything, you have concluded there is no other option, yet is it to discuss upon a remedies that took advantage of aripo could have made use of that through the table. Yes, Folake.
Yeah. And even in the event that there had been communication with the Works Council, still the communication should imply that.
Meeting Works Council,
Right.
We deliberated and come to this conclusion.
Right.
From individual to the rest.
Right.
Yes.
So this is also something we must note in how we are communicating with our employees in the event of a situation quite like this. Jikai Nongwe Mteleli 5893, good morning. So are you worried about an employee? What about the employer? Sakamoti obva avhara here zvachose here nekuti haagoni kuwana imwe njira yekushandisa nekuti haana kuti basa rapera.
We must actually be worried of both parties. We are not worried about a single party. Both the employer, labor, and business, that is the employer, we are equally worried about them. Those are it's a risk factor to business. It's a cost factor to business. Had he taken care of this one, problems. This is what we are saying. We are actually on his side, the employer side.
Yeah.
We are assisting him.
Right.
Yes.
We are saying, Nyangwe, because at law, this is where I think you can help us. At law, even if your intent is good, as long as it is not consistent with what the requirement at law is, you are still breaking the law. It's like somebody who breaks into someone's house to feed his children. It's still theft, even if the intent was well meant. Kosam, do we still have you on the line? Okay, we seem to have lost Kosam there. It is Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. So in this case, Itai, would you recommend, listeners also asking, would this be unpaid leave where you have partial closure and there is no income? Ideally, it should be unpaid leave, should it?
The thing, Folake, let's take this seriously. And the Labor Act, the way it was couched is a pluralistic nature. They could include them ways at a workplace. Saka decisions are not a cheat as from one side. It could be unpaid leave, but let it come from the what? From the table, from the discussion. But in this case, accumulate leave days already. It was a possible opportunity for them to make use of them. But this is through agreement.
As long as it is a dialogue, it makes this easier and better for you as an organization. It's 11 minutes before we get to 10 o'clock. We'd also wanted to come back to the issue, Itai, of sexual harassment.
That one.
Yes,
Okay.
I intended to play a little bit of the audio, but it's a little bit long, so let's put it on hold. But in some cases, we, the women, find ourselves giving the impression that we are leading on a man. Walk us through that interpretation as far as sexual harassment is concerned. Because over the weeks, you did teach us on how when you feel that there are issues of sexual harassment, nyora pasi zvazoitika, tsvaka vanhu vanozobetsera kuzomira nevachipa umbo kuti zvakaitika kuti tisangozoti makakavadzana kuti iye naye. But in some cases, such as the audios that we had and the texts that we saw, it also gave the impression that the woman was also enticing the man. How does that work out when we then want to fight sexual harassment?
Right. Folake, maybe the best point to start is my behaviors that are sexual nature. Kune mama anogona kutoitika ari kutoitika izvo Folake tichitaura pamabasa but haadefiniwe halabeliwe enzi what is sexual harassment. Reason is because vanhu vari kuzvida Saka kuti chinhu chinzi sexual harassment inyaya yekuti it's not welcome. Zvauri kuita iwe, be it physical nani verbal, zvatakataura all those methods, handiti kana umwe wako akati haasi kudi haasi kuzvida akati no, that becomes what? Sexual harassment. So in interpreting that one, Folake, I also reviewed some cases. Yes, particularly in South Africa. Because remember, in our case, apart from the Rita one, which is the one which is noticeable, we didn't have many of those ones. Yes. So in this incident, Folake, there were two different circumstances or scenarios where in the first one, wakaenda ku swimming. Dogba, this other male colleague, Dogba strip naked in front of the what? Of the women or the female colleague. Yes. Saka akaita naked to an extent that akatosara ari nude. And you get the sense. This was the first incident. Then the second incident, this male colleague akati, can I give you 1,000 rands? This was a South African case. Can I give you 1,000 rands for sex? Yes. Saka, the female colleague also replied jokingly through the evidence. Agati, no, my rate is 10,000 rand. And you see, then on the last one, and that already about two. Then the last one, and I'm sure this female colleague, akaenda naye kuma strippers ku club. Achinoona strippers. Saka, after some time, the male colleague, because he was boss to her, akabva azomunyorera a cautioning letter, a warning letter about her performance. Saka uyu achibva anoretrieve ma-issues aya manje ndobva kuti ndobva aita ma-allegations of sexual harassment. Ndizvo kazvifolaka. Saka in interpreting this one, you could see kuti this female colleague is a willing participant.
Right.
Ndizvo.
Right.
Saka court
because by definition of sexual harassment, we said it is unwanted.
That's the key for that.
Offensive, hurtful behavior that you do not want. I'm repeating myself, but it's unwanted.
It's unwanted.
Right.
Right. Saka court yakati, had it been an issue of sexual harassment, this female colleague could have at one of these points said no. Or I don't like what you are doing. Then also, it said that this female colleague could have reported these cases to my relevant authority.
Right, like HR or whatever.
But none of those things happened. So they took it to be my proposals, love proposals.
Right.
Yes.
So in short, you are reminding us that if indeed it is sexual harassment, whether you're a man or a woman who's receiving this unwanted advances, you must also clearly show that you're not a willing participant.
Right.
Got you. Got you. You have got to be unwilling.
Yes.
And it must be proven. So the moment I then entice you.
Because remember, at one point we asked the question to say, so can adults not propose each other in the workplace? But in our country, in our constitution, there's nothing like that one. And
vakawanda vakatowana na vanhu vakawanda chaizvo. Right.
So we have to be one of those ones as well.
Right. So yes. For you to not be found on the wrong side, yeah, so that changes our argument even as women, right? That it's no longer enough to just prove that the man indeed made proposal advances. You as the person, the victim, must prove that you were unwilling.
Not that you are pure a notice, and a warning you are not performing well. Then you are a scorned person, a scorned lover, retaliate.
Right.
That's not what we define as sexual harassment. And it no. That's how it should be.
Right. So in other words, it becomes difficult to prove that it's sexual harassment if your string of communication also shows that you were willing in some ways. You were encouraging the behavior.
At no point had we seen this female colleague saying no to those advances or to those actions. But it doesn't matter what mamboira na ukako. Kana iwe ukangosvika pa point yekuti auchadi ukati no, that becomes sexual harassment. Get to a point where you say, no, I don't like this behavior.
Right. But so say that again for us, Itai. So you're saying at the point you then say no, it becomes sexual harassment. Say that again. That change up and shashini, it becomes sexual harassment.
Right. And for instance, in this case, Yadati review for there were 3 incidences. And Saka Trukut Unogona Kumisa goes first one. Ufunga Kutuchi is just a way colleague. It's no more. You can do that. Whether the second one, you are reply my rate is 10,000. It's like you are joking. But you go not the third encounter now is advancing to where you don't like it. You say no, I don't like that.
Right. You make it clear.
Yes. Will it not be sexual harassment? That's sexual harassment, regardless of what happened before.
But it becomes sexual harassment after I've said no and he keeps doing it.
Correct.
Okay, got you.
Yes,
because sometimes it is a proposal, and once I say no, that the no is not the sexual harassment. It's the fact that you continue to perpetuate unwanted behavior after the no.
That's correct.
Got you. So there's a question here which I think is a great question. Ukana boss vakazorabwa vakabva vashandisa simba to write a caution warning. What does this become? Tomboti yeah, that's a great question. Let's use both scenarios. Tomboti vangwachita proposal. Obva waramba iwewe. Obva vanyora tsamba. Your caution warning, which happens all the time. How do you navigate that? What would that be classified under?
Yeah, it well depends, because remember, if it is a cautioned letter for performance, performance is not a subjective thing. It must be a value judgment. Right. It must look at some indicators, some values, and
there must be a track record,
well or not. Okay. So if it becomes an aspect of coincidence, then it's coincidence. But if you are not performing well, don't hide behind G.